Welcome to Minecraft. There's something special about starting again. A new world, untouched, where the only thing that matters is what you make of it. This is Cabin, a mod pack that doesn't ask you to conquer, but to create. The goal isn't just to survive, it's to invent. To turn gears and dreams into something real. And maybe, if we dream big enough, we'll have what it takes to travel to space. Let the movie begin. Cabin is an updated version of Create Above and Beyond, the only official Create mod pack made by the developer themselves. It's been updated by Pansmith, bringing it into new versions of Minecraft and newer versions of Create. Our journey unfolds across 5 chapters, each one filled with challenges and clever contraptions. There are also a handful of side quests to keep us busy, and as always, we are aiming for 100% completion. Every detail, every discovery. So let's head north from spawn, collecting wood and stone on the way. We are heading for a clearing I spotted earlier when I was scouting out this seed. On the way, we'll stumble upon an abandoned workshop. I know it's quiet now, but it's still holding on to a few forgotten treasures. A helpful start. But after a day of traveling, we have arrived at a peaceful, open space, just begging to be shaped into a small factory town. It's perfect. But before we lose ourselves in the quest book, I think it would be a great idea to set up a place for us to live and somewhere for us to work from. So let's take a moment to gather some resources and make a start on some building. Alright my friends, welcome back. We've laid the foundation of a cozy little home. Simple but full of potential. For now, I'm going to put the building on hold. Gathering materials is going a lot slower than I would like, but there's a plan forming. If we push forward with progression, those resources will soon come to us. This mod pack's decoration options are a little bit limited, so I've added a mod called Framed Blocks for a bit more freedom. A few extra blocks to help bring the world to life. Every so often, I'm reminded how much I overlook the simplicity of vanilla Minecraft. Since we're near a village, it made sense to set up a small iron farm. Nothing fancy, just a clean little design by Voltrox, linked below. So the quest book lays it out clearly. We need to automate wood, andesite, clay, and kelp. Unfortunately, automation isn't quite within our reach. So first, we need to craft some andesite machines, a stepping stone into the next phase of progression. To begin with, we'll need 8 kinetic mechanisms. That means crafting andesite alloy, a custom recipe using andesite and algal bricks. The bricks come from algal blend, a mix of kelp and clay. For now, it is all hands on. The blend goes into the furnace, and while it bakes, we're going to craft up a saw. With a bit of effort, we have got our first batch of andesite alloy and 14 kinetic mechanisms. A little alloy, a few logs, and we've got our first andesite casing, and with it, our first machine. We could pop it into the stone cutter to make some useful items, but what I really want right now is a mechanical saw. Unfortunately, that needs lead, and right now, lead is proving to be quite elusive, so instead, we pivot. Place it down, strike it with an iron block, and just like that, it becomes a mechanical press. Magic. Our next andesite machine becomes a sediment strainer using some iron bars. We're also going to need a filter. That means collecting straw from grass and weaving it into a canvas. Filter crafted. Now how do we actually use this? Water above it. It's slow, 30 seconds per cycle, but this quiet little machine here will one day automate all of our clay. One day. For now, I'm going to go back to the mines in search of a little bit more lead, so perhaps we can start thinking about a tree farm. Well, not much lead, but it was enough to make one saw. This can now be used with a crank to instantly chop down trees, so that's something great at least. Using some drill heads which cost 2 lead ingots each, we can craft up some mechanical drills. It is time to put together a tunnel bore to hopefully get more lead to make a bigger tunnel bore. And for now, it's a little baby one, but it's gonna grow with us, one drill at a time. We'll need glue to hold everything together, and for that, we're gonna need slime. Thankfully, jellyfish. You may have spotted them in the montage earlier. When smelted, one jellyfish becomes one slime ball. It's a strange little process, but it works. One curious detail about this mod pack, mine ores are crushed, not raw. Right now we smelt them into just 3 nuggets. Eventually we'll be able to upgrade that. We can mill them finer or wash them cleaner. Just 42 lead dust gave me 9 ingots. It's a grind, but every little bit matters. Alright, after a few false starts and some seriously janky setups, we are finally off on an adventure to snag tons and tons of lead. Hopefully. It's times like these that it's good to step back and appreciate what you've already accomplished. No longer will we need to go mining by hand to try and find small deposits of ores. Instead, we are going to upgrade our contraption to core its way through the planet to hopefully find them for us. Well, it's growing, but it is nowhere near its final size just yet. I have got 42 more drill heads to add, but making the andesite machines by hand is becoming quite the task. So I think we should look into some semi-automation so we can use the better recipe, using just a slab and 2 andesite alloy. And I did start setting that up, but you may notice that something quite crucial is missing. You cannot make belts from kelp. They need cured rubber. We are nowhere near getting the arboreal extractors, so instead we'll be mixing 4 plants and some water to make 1. Pop those into there, mixy and we have got some rubber. Pop them in a furnace and after making up a second lot we can make up 3 belts. We can hook up the sequenced assembly, pop in some slabs, and now we are much more efficiently making kinetic mechanisms. We can also use a mixer to make andesite alloy a little bit cheaper, adding another layer of efficiency to our world. I think we're at the point now where we can continue to get our home built, and then we can move on to setting up automation for chapter 1. We'll turn this small idea of a home into something slightly more unusual like this. It's not my usual style, but I've decided for this mod pack I am going to push myself outside of my comfort zone and try and build something weird, maybe learn a thing or 2 along the way. For andesite, we are going to need to make a hole all the way down to bedrock. It should be quite easy now that we've got drills and pulleys. That's set up, we'll check back in on this later to see how it gets on. The next thing to think about is a kelp farm, and I think this little hill over here will do nicely. We just kind of need to clear up some space. We're going to need a few mechanical harvesters and some storage interfaces. We'll start with a water wheel and then a mechanical bearing, the simplest way to provide rotational power. The kelp grows from the first block, so our harvesters will need to be on the second layer. For now we're going to have the interface sticking way out at the top as an easy means of emptying it. If we place a plough under our outermost harvester, we can use that to draw a circle for everywhere we need to plant a kelp. Perfect shape. Just kinda need to make this look a little bit tidier and add in the kelp. Let me see what I can hobble together. Here's what I hobbled together. It's not much, but it works. Now I want to start plotting out the size and shape of the tree farm. We could do another mechanical bearing farm, but I think having a nice building around a cart contraption would look much nicer. I'm thinking we'll have a staircase to get into this building, so I guess we're going to go up around 5 blocks. We'll use strip spruce because it's pretty, and we'll use the building one so we can lay down our flooring. Spruce again because it's the wood that we currently have a lot of. We should also include a place for us to extract resin for cured rubber. Well, that's the basic shape, we can sort out and fill it in later. For now, let's grab some lava and head down to bedrock to see about making some andesite. What we need to do is we need to generate cobblestone on the top of a piece of bedrock, and that should give us andesite. And after some digging, I found 4 perfectly aligned bedrock ready for such a task. Then after setting up a cobble generator, it looks like we also get granite and diorite too. And my idea of using a fan to pull the dropped items didn't quite work. It looks like I'm going to need to spend a little more time in this hole to try and figure this out. I'll see you soon right after this message from Hobble. Please consider subscribing. My goal is to reach 100,000 people this year, and your support would mean the world. It's a little bit rough around the edges, but it works. It's not completely lossless, but it's enough for now until we've unlocked more tools. Well, maybe we could use a full block instead of trapdoors, but there's also a weird update thing where one row makes it into the funnel, and then one row just sits there and chills. It's fine for now. They're going into a storage drawer so we have void upgrade possibilities. The final steps will be getting everything to the surface, and I'm thinking we're probably just gonna make some elevator out of a pulley. I mean, bubble elevators would be too easy after all. Am I climbing up, or am I climbing down? The game is weird like that. Portal time. Honestly, that's not a bad spawn spot. I can remember why I was coming in here, so we'll grab some quartz and get out of here. Cobalt. Yeah, did I not mention that we're gonna have to play with tinkers at some point? I'm sure we'll get through it. It has been updated after all, and it could now be fun. Well, I didn't plan on looting anything, but here we are, doing it anyway. Oh, smithing template. I think we need this for netherite tools. Nice. Okay, that's enough avoiding it. Let's see about putting together that tree farm and a building around it. Well, other than needing a bunch of detail, this is pretty close to what I was seeing in my head. I'd call that a win. I did add a mod called Create Deco to help me out, and of course all of the added mods are in the description, all of them decorational. Now down in the basement we've got space for a tree farm. That works. Well, that's unexpected. Toolboxes cannot be accessed while on a contraption. Just a few early teething issues, nothing major. Every contraption has its quirks after all, especially in the beginning. Much better. Everything gets pulled out onto a belt and sent into their own drawers. The oak is then sent into a vault, ready to be sent to the next factory that's gonna need wood. Now, if we do a magical spin, we might be able to make a factory just appear. Much like the other builds, it needs more detail, but honestly, I'm kinda just waiting on better technology. Like those frog ports and chains, they're gonna change everything. I've installed a bi-directional lift to bring the andesite up and down, and for now, we are just belting across the kelp and the logs. It's on the inside that's where the magic happens. Essentially, we are mixing kelp and clay together for the blend, cooking that and mixing it with andesite. We are then turning the logs into slabs ready for final assembly. The clay is made upstairs using a simple strainer system, though the automation of making the filters isn't quite possible just yet. But so far we are up to 1.7k mechanisms, so that's andesite machines pretty much sorted. It's an incredible feeling. We can also claim the rewards for completing Chapter 1, and that means we have unlocked Chapter 2. But I would also like to unlock 1A and 1B for copper and gold machinery. 1A, sealed mechanisms are made from cured rubber, which is only partially automated in the tree farm right now. That'll give us the smeltery controller and copper machines. And copper machines mostly give us access to fluid movement and item drains. Gold machines, they're just trains. We don't really need trains. Next up, precision mechanisms for Chapter 2. And let me tell you right now, this is not going to be easy. We'll need polished rose quartz and molten iron, Yay tinkers! Destabilized redstone and automated Certus quartz crystals. I think we'll start off with getting skystone dust, so I guess we're off to go and find a meteor crash site. Well, there's not much skystone to salvage here, but it's okay because we can infinitely mill it into skystone dust. Mysterious cube, why not? We might need them for endgame. After a little convincing, we are now auto-converting our resin into cured rubber. I've also made a start on a rice farm, though we're not going to need this until much later. I kinda wanted to just get the space reserved ready for it. We've also started to incorporate puller and pusher upgrades into our drawers, which are surprisingly cheap to craft. Not only does it allow us to stockpile items, it also lets us move 4 items at a time instead of the one with the andesite funnel. Moving on, we've got a simple seared heater set up here, and I've melted down some clay. We can pop some stone into the basin and turn on the tap, and that'll cure into seared stone. We can use that with some sealed mechanisms to make a smeltery controller, and then we can make up a bunch of seared bricks. For now, we're just going to set up a smeltery in the house, but we're going to move it once we get infinite lava set up. Oh bother. It appears that we cannot make brass the way that I first thought, and instead, of course, it has multiple steps. Instead, we need to mix molten copper and zinc together. 2 regular melters seem to do the trick, and we're now making molten brass. Using a list filter set to brass bucket, we can then extract that into a basin for cooling. This is a monumental step forward in progression, almost unlocking the next generation of Create mod logistics. It feels good to reach this point, but we're not stopping now. We are in fact only just getting started. Let me go and see if I can hobble us together a house for us to build our chapter 2 into. We have a house and a little bit more. Firstly, we have a basic minecart harvester to pick up all of the rice. Again, we don't need it yet. It's just available for when we do. And it turns out chain conveyors are accessible to us right now, meaning we can move rotational power around quite easily, and then we'll have the infrastructure ready for Frogport integration. All we're missing now is a nice big power plant. Now I've done a tiny bit of landscaping, integrating a little bit of water for a splash of blue. Fun, right? Now let's head down to Bedrock real quick because I want to show you something. Andesite generation I think has now been fixed for good. We've got 4 drills running at maximum speed and a backpack with a magnet upgrade. It is very cheap, you just need some ender pills and it fixes it forever. Yay! Ah no, we missed the elevator, but that's okay. Because if you've set your home, you can just do /home to teleport home. Home. One final thing before we progress. The developer has added one new but incredible mod. It allows sophisticated storage to work on contraptions. It has fixed our tree farm forever because now we can use stack and void upgrades on the contraption. We just now void the overflow on everything except for logs. It means that we'll forever have saplings available to be replanted. It's amazing. Right, let's head into our new 3-story home, and we can start thinking about how we're gonna automate chapter 2. I think firstly we should tackle watering the quartz seeds into grown Certus quartz. So we're gonna need 2 belts and a spout. A drawer locks to the grown Certus to pull out the finished product, and anything else can then cycle around the belts again. Same on the other side, it just reduces the need for another belt. This is not an efficient system, it's a proof of concept. If we pop on 2 quartz seeds, it's gonna cycle around 12 times each and turn into 2 Certus crystals. The idea being that soon we'll be able to turn those 2 crystals into 4 seeds, essentially duplicating them. Then we can just siphon off the extras. The next task is infinite skystone dust, and thankfully it was quite easy, exclusively thanks to the pusher and puller upgrades. It has allowed us to both push and pull the skystone blocks in and out of the millstone, crushing them indefinitely into skystone dust. Very cheeky. We then just send that dust into a mixing basin with some water, giving us the volatile sky solution. We then send that into a new mixing basin with a smart pipe and a filter. Now we just need to supply the solution with a charged Certus quartz. We're going to be using a Stirling dynamo for power, at least for now, and we're probably going to feed it some charcoal. So, we get uncharged Certus back from the basin, we then send it through to the south to the charger. We'll lock the drawer behind to the charged quartz, and we'll pull from the east and push to the north. We have destabilized redstone. Nice! This is going to combine with our seed-grown Certus to make rose quartz. I just need to figure that bit out. I'll be right back. Well, it's messy, but it pretty much works. But that's okay, because I have realized something. We are not supposed to be fully automating this at the moment. That's because we're going to need to split these equally every time. One to make a new seed and one for processing. And that kind of needs brass. So for now, it's going to be a manual process to make the seeds. I dump them into the new item hatch, which by the way, I absolutely love, and they'll get processed. Once made, I send half of them off to be polished rose quartz, which we then put underneath the molten iron to make the electron tubes. We're going to use these in some sequenced assembly, where the final deployer we have a screwdriver, and the other two get the tubes. Send in some kinetic mechanisms, and my friends, we have semi-automated precision mechanisms. Now we're just gonna need some brass sheets and by the way, unprocessed Invar ingots are unstackable, so don't make a stack at a time. It's kind of scary. Plus, it needs to be stamped 16 times, so it's kind of just annoying to make right now. I just wanted a higher tier stack upgrade, since we can only ever use one stack upgrade at a time. Right, let's make up some brass casings so we can make our very first brass machine. This is so exciting. And I'm not sure if I mentioned, but we are now using a backpack for all of our create bits. But the one thing I do want to share is that making the stone cutting upgrade is very helpful. Like for example, crafting a rotational speed controller on the go. Now with chapter 2 complete, we have unlocked 2A, but more importantly 2B, which is gonna unlock the rest of the Create 6 update. Froggies, we are coming for you. Soon, TM. But for now, we kinda need to let chapter 2 run for just a little bit, so we can stockpile some more brass machines. Welcome back. I've been thinking, and what has been expertly deduced is that this entire system is likely going to be replaced quite soon, once we get the frog ports. So I'm not going to worry at all about efficiency, but there's definitely some bottlenecks brewing, like Skystone. We need 4 dust at a time, so multiple millstones is needed, which is what I'm practicing here. And now the newest issue is the speed at which we water our quartz, and I'm kinda tempted to just later use 12 spouts and do away with the whole loop system. Anyways, the seed is turned into quartz and heads into this storage drawer. Once we have 2, we extract them and split them in half. One heads to the mechanical crafter to make 2 seeds, which then refills the system, and the second one heads through to a mixer at the back to make the polished rose quartz. Thanks to the automation, we have got a nice supply of precision mechanisms, and then of course the brass machines as a result of that. We're pretty set for a while. So, I spent the time trying to set up a recipe tree with EMI for making lead machines, but sadly it gets a bit confused with the liquids and sequenced assembly, so I have no idea what it needs. One thing we know for certain is that infernal machines will need a lot of lava, so let's try something. If we set up a minecart contraption with a real big tank on it, head through to the nether with a hose pulley to get that infinite forbidden soup, and fill up said tank contraption. Pick it up and place it down again, it really does retain its inventory. That's awesome! That means we don't need to bother setting up the usual lava train to try and make an infinite pit at home, and instead we can just load the tank and move it back and forth. Though we're probably gonna want a much bigger tank. Taking a break from that to explore this fortress, as we're gonna need some nether wart for the potion making part. We also have an empty blaze burner to fill, so it's gonna get real hot real quick. We're on fire now, but that is the burners filled. Tucked away in the nether, a castle. This place, packed with chain drives and cogwheels, if you're looking for some freebies. More importantly, it has netherwort, so that is the distraction complete. We'll also need glowberries or sweet berries, but I'll worry about that later. I guess I better work out where this infinite lava tank is gonna go. I'll see you soon. So I'm running the tunnel bore again because I ran out of tuff, but let me just say, sophisticated storage on a tunnel bore is incredible. Void and stack upgrades, it's just perfection. Now another reason I've brought you back is I've added some deployers to the tunnel bore, set up for placing torches. Whenever it gets a little bit dark, we place 2 torches into the barrel and it's going to place them for us. Not super exciting right now, but wait, imagine a 200 drill long tunnel bore and being able to light up the entire mine in one go. I think I'm going to be adding this system to all of my tunnel bores going forward. It seems so useful, and feel free to steal this idea for your own, since this doesn't seem to be common knowledge. Right, back to Workhobble, and Workhobble did do. Behind me we have a new building that is going to house our power plant, and yes, the roof is weird, but it's going to have to do as my creativity has kind of run dry. So going forward, we're just going to build the foundation of the building so we can progress, and then come back later to design the building around that. Let the batteries recharge a bit. Inside I have set up the beginnings of a boiler, but I've realized that we don't have the add-on that lets us pump directly into the burners, so we're going to need to work out a bucket refill system. Now if we head over here down the ladder, we'll reach the swimming pool you can only swim in once, the infinite lava. When filling, you want to make sure your pulley is at the top block, and then once filled, you want to crank that all the way to the bottom so it remains infinite. Now before we progress, there's a couple more bits that I want to show you. We of course unlocked mechanical crafting, so that meant crushing wheels are now a thing, and we can now do better for ore doubling rates. Upstairs we have a basic silverfish farm, where we haunt stone to infest it, and then place and break it down to spawn silverfish. Then we've got a sword with sweeping edge on it so we can attack the fish via the armor stand. It's easy experience, just a very boring time. So let's head on up to the next floor in our chapter 2 building, where we've brought over a pipe that's connected to our lava pool. Lava is only one part of the sequence though. We'll also be needing liquid soul. We'll make that from twisting vines and weeping vines, mixed together in a heated basin. We make half a bucket at a time, and we need to spout on a full bucket's worth 6 times. That's 12 of each vine per mechanism, which is a bit rough. Weeping vines grow from the ceiling, and twisting vines grow from the floor. So I'm thinking that we can probably use the same one machine to harvest both at the same time. Something like this maybe, but probably a lot bigger. That's gonna need to be sent into a heated blaze burner, so another use for the lava that we're sending up. Actually, first we'll put everything into a single barrel, and then send it separately into a basin with a mechanical arm. This ensures that it's not gonna get clogged up by just one of the vine types. Well, that escalated quickly, so let me walk you through this real quick. To feed the blaze burner, we have an empty bucket sitting on a depot, which is then filled by a lava spout. We pick up the lava bucket with a mechanical arm, use it on the burner, and then deposit the empty bucket into this filtered brass funnel. This will now be happy to run forever, which is kind of what you want in your automation. With everything hooked up to power, we are now making liquid soul. We can extract that with a mechanical pump, and it's going to head over to the sequenced assembly. We can pop on a precision mechanism, and it's now going to loop around 6 times. Liquid soul is definitely going to be the bottleneck, since vines are typically quite slow to grow. We do have Farmer's Delight, so we could use rich soil to accelerate the growth, but I'm not really sure if that boosts the hanging vines. For now, that is one infernal mechanism created. We'll of course need 7 more to make the machine. While we wait, let's use a diamond knife to harvest some rice to get some straw. You can also get it from grass and wheat, but rice is the easiest for us. We can use that to start crafting up some organic compost. Using an axe to strip some logs on a cutting board is going to give us some bark, which is a better recipe than using our limited rotten flesh to craft it. This organic compost needs time to decompose, but we can speed that up by placing it next to water during the daytime. Placing on some mushrooms will also help speed it up, so hopefully now this won't take too long. Ah yeah, we're out of liquid soul, because we're out of vines. Let me see what I can go and hobble together to try and improve this design. Using some zinc casings, we can craft up the first zinc machine. We could use it to make a storage controller, very useful. An igneous extruder, very useful. The very first most important thing on my list is the mega torch. It is driving me mad having mobs around here constantly, just because I was 10 seconds late to going to bed. Plonk. Lovely. We'll likely need a few of these since I think the range isn't that large in this mod pack. I've apparently installed an Enderman belt. That's cool, I guess. What I can't help but notice is that this seems to be broken somewhere. There was a bone on the belt. Well, thanks to the nether torch, that shouldn't happen again, hopefully. So I've moved and extended the vine farm, but unfortunately it did seem that the rich soil doesn't boost the growth of hanging blocks. Apparently it does work on glowberries, but I couldn't get it to work with the vines. The plan now though is for this to pretty much just wait for the liquid soul to be in, since we're kind of out of space now and we just kind of have to wait. The next task that I want to focus on is learning how to make potions with Create mod. That way we can work towards the lead machines. We'll need a sweet berry farm and netherwort farm because we're gonna need potions of haste. We'll also need a lot of liquid pulp, which is made from 2 pulp, which we're probably gonna get from a bamboo farm. Since looking at this list, it's probably the fastest growing one. 4 bamboo makes 1 pulp, and 2 pulp makes half a bucket of liquid pulp. Each loop needs 900 millibuckets, equaling 16 bamboo. And of course it needs 4 loops, meaning 1 mechanism is 64 bamboo. To be fair, I'm not worried about the bamboo, since the bottleneck is definitely going to be the potion of haste. It is so nice to see nighttime again. That is the steam boiler up and running, using the same lava bucket system we worked out earlier. It sends those stress units into the chain conveyor network, which hopefully isn't going to break too much. The bamboo is now planted, and I've used the rich soil to allow us to make a smaller farm without harming the rates. Just remember to use mechanical saws for the bamboo, since it's technically a tree. The bamboo is sent through the wall and shot upstairs using a fan, and upstairs they are caught and then sent to a mixer with water to make the pulp. The pulp then goes to another mixer to make that liquid pulp. This one of course needs to be heated, so yet again another lava bucket system at work. But finally we send that liquid into a tank ready for the next steps. I never want to say pulp again. Outside we have got a sweet berry farm, and I've added a wart farm onto the end of it so we can use the one harvester for both crops. Again, these are dropped off upstairs into a barrel so we can separate them. The nether wart heads around to make the awkward potion, and the sweet berries head over to a depot to get haunted into glowberries, which then work their way over to be mixed with the awkward potion in yet another heated blaze burner. That gives us the potion of haste, the final piece of the alchemical puzzle. It is spouted onto some precision mechanisms along with the liquid pulp to eventually turn into logistic mechanisms. That, my friends, is lead machinery unlocked for us. That's chapter 2 finally 100% completed. That means we've unlocked the remaining and most important pieces of the Create 6 update, and we'll be sending packages in no time. I would also love to learn how these factory gauges work, since on paper they sound awesome. I think I'm going to be spending a lot of time in the ponder scenes. We're at the point where we may even want to rebuild and optimize our currently completed chapters, making it so that they can interconnect with each other. But of course, we have now unlocked chapter 3, and this one is a fairly involved one by the looks of it. However, we have been pushing forward for quite a long time, so I think now is a good time to take a step back from the grind and reimagine what has already been created. Out with the old chapter 1 and in with the new. Well, almost. We now have a basement, which is fun, which is where we're going to be automating the clay and the creation of strainer filters. On the vault with the rice on, we are going to attach a packager. We'll then attach a frog on top of that and tell it that it's only going to be sending packages. On the packager, we'll attach a stock link, which is going to start a brand new network. For now, we're going to attach one factory gauge to that network. Over at the millstone, we need to name a receiving frog, and we're going to go with C1 rice in. With our linked factory gauge, we'll pop that onto the packager for that froggy. We're then going to tell that gauge to watch the rice, and right now there is 0 rice in the attached storage drawer. If we tell it to keep 1 stack in the drawer and tell it which frog to send that rice to, it's going to request from the storage rices in and send it over. I love it. Now, of course, that rice is going to get pushed into the millstone. I won't bore you with those details. It just works and we have automated straw ready for crafting. Next, I'm going to work out how the auto crafting part works. I'm hopefully going to see you soon with an answer and the rest of chapter 1 upgraded. Oh yes, my friends, let us start downstairs. So we left off with straw being automated via the frog ports, and from there we compact it into canvas and it's accessible to frogs. We also need sticks, so we've got a crafter requesting logs from our tree farm and then crafting those sticks. And now for the bit that I don't fully understand yet. Auto crafting. Everything here is connected to the same create network, and we have some gauges on the wall watching each ingredient for the craft. The final gauge is the crafting one. We need to add in the ingredient connections, click mechanical crafting and tell it what froggy the crafter input is. That's this froggy here. He needs to be attached to a barrel because the ingredients arrive at different times. From there, we're going to attach a repackager and it's going to combine those ingredients into one single package, which is then sent to a packager attached to the crafter. So confusing, I know. Then we just watch the output with another packager and stock link. We are now also using dual controllers to give a short range wireless transfer of items, like moving the filters here. Surprise tip, you can use waterlogged leaves for the strainers. Very useful. That is the clay automated, and we're using void upgrades to just get rid of the sand. In hindsight, I should have washed the sand. There's a decent chance to get extra clay from it, a small thing, but it would sure add up. That clay is sent over to make the algal blend, and eventually the andesite alloy. 16k kinetic mechanisms hooked up to the chain network, ready for chapter 2. So as the sun sets on our little town we're building, I'm gonna work on making chapter 2 work a little more efficiently. 3,000 or 4,000 blocks away from home because we need ice. Lots of ice. Such a fun sound. Oh, slimy ferns. I think we're gonna need this for chapter 3. Green ones as well. This is a lucky adventure, we just need the purple now, which in the old version did spawn in the end dimension. I'm kinda hoping that that's not the case here. The ice allowed us to set up some igneous extruders down at bedrock to supercharge our andesite generation, and I think we're going to be using these a lot more in the future. At the end of town, we have a new floor area for us to work on chapter 3, and later we'll tackle the building around it. Just need to try and find the purple slimy ferns and we're ready to go. First, let me show you chapter 2, where we are now using 12 water spouts to grow the seed, and it is a bit more efficient. And of course, to save on lag, I'm using a threshold switch to keep a stockpile of the Certus crystals, that way we don't need to be running it constantly. Something you might not know is that the Tinker's Faucet can pour directly into a spout, making for easy molten iron. The rest of the upgrades are mostly just using the drawers to wirelessly move items around. Oh, and hooking up the frogs so we can keep a stock of precision mechanisms. I did try hooking up the logistic mechanisms, but it takes so dang long for one mechanism to be made, it actually just keeps sending infinite precision ones up here, crashing the entire system. I am so annoyed at these potions. It should be mixing forever, but it pauses after every craft and waits for it to be transferred into the next container. So frustrating. And lastly, I moved every item we own down into a large item vault. in the main house. That way we can try out this stock keeper to request items. Time will tell to see how much I rate this system. Also, we were using far too many stress units, so the second and final boiler is up and running, giving us a cool 250,000 stress units to play with. Now chapter 3 is now ready for us to work out. Having added a basement and chain conveyors everywhere to link onto, we're going to start off with some cobble generators using igneous extruders, and I'm planning on overproducing so we have some spare for later if we need it. Something like this will do perfectly, and we can hook them all up wirelessly to a storage controller for easy access. Though the range isn't going to quite reach, we can throw in some storage upgrades and that's going to boost the range perfectly. What we need now is an auto crafter to be able to make crushing wheels without user input, and I think we're going to use Create 6 for that. We can connect the back of the crafter along the outside and the ones on the inside. That makes it easier for input. We'll pull cobblestone into a drawer and then push it into the outer layer of the crafter, working as intended. On the inner layer we'll have a packager, grab a stock link on a stick network and connect it to the packager. Add in our froggy, and I think actually a factory gauge is what we need for this, and watching for sticks, sending 5 at a time. Set the receiver address, and here comes the sticks. I was kind of worried that we might need a buffer storage. It's just going to need some power and it's going to auto craft crushing wheels for us forever. You'll find out why this is needed in just a moment. Or now, with the crafters powered, I have taken the liberty of automating the creation of gravel and sand from some of that cobblestone. We are making crushing wheels so we can send them through some crushing wheels. That's going to make singularities. Oh, the fun we have here. Side note, I did find the purple slimy fins. The coordinates are here if you're on the same seed. Again, I don't recommend doing the same seed as me. You'll find out why later. We now need to invent a machine that is going to turn these ferns into leaves, duplicate them, and then cook them into bone meal, gunpowder, and ender dust. Attempt 1 is a fail, as it's a bit wide and long and we kinda need to fit 3 of these in. Attempt number 4 is a success, and it is now up and running. Let me walk you through this. Just remember that channel members have world downloads and can walk around this world for themselves. This design heavily relies on the fact that if you have a belt, and off that belt we have a millstone, a single brass tunnel can split between them. So the slimy fern gets chopped into 2 leaves and is split with a tunnel. One goes to a millstone and the second is thrown into a spirit fire from occultism. The one from the fire gets turned back into a slimy fern and is picked up by a vacuumulator. That's then sent back around to the start of the loop to go around again. The millstone leaf is turned into slimy blend and is moved from the millstone with a mechanical arm and put into a deployer. That's because a deployer is the only thing that can start campfire cooking from that vanilla Minecraft I keep hearing about. This one turns into gunpowder, and we are using the same vacuumulator to pick that up. All that's left to do is to plug it in and let it run. The best part is this has overflow protection built in, and it's not going to start spewing items everywhere. Don't worry, I checked. Now, the next task will be creating TNT from the sand and gunpowder, and we're probably going to do this downstairs. We then need to use the bone meal on roses to be able to automate red dye, and the underdust and singularities need to be blown up together. Things are about to get a little chaotic, I think, but that, my friends, is part of the fun. Here is a nice and simple design to make flowers for the dye. We just use a packager on a dispenser constantly ticking. All we're watching is how many flowers we have in storage for sending over the bone meal, since it is 1-to-1. The same for red dye, and we are putting that through a crafter because it has no byproducts of any other color dyes like if we millstoned it. Right, it is time to work out the TNT setup. Carefully. My first attempt didn't quite work. The spacing appears to be off. That's close enough it seems, and we have 2 quantum entangled singularities. We're also going to only want to explode TNT when both items are present, so maybe an AND gate and a pressure plate could work? Sort of, but then it's got to be inverted to go to a deployer so it's on by default. I'll come back to this because right now there's something else I want to talk about, something that we've not mentioned before. There is a whole other way to play this mod pack, using professions and trading, earning silver and buying resources. That is how I went through Above and Beyond, so we're not really using it here. And while there's not much that we're going to be buying with silver, I do want to get a few bits. The reason that I'm bringing up silver is in the market we can buy the Test of Patience, which we're probably going to want to set up as soon as possible. In this barrel is another barrel. In that barrel, another barrel. And it keeps going forever. At a 1 in 2.5 million chance, you could reach the bottom and possibly find a reward. We're going to want to work out automation for this kind of right now, so that way it can run while we work on the rest of the mod pack. I mean, it's not 100% completion if we don't find the reward after all. It means that we're going to need to fight with NBT data to make sure that we're always placing down the correct barrel. And this little system right here seems to do the trick. A deployer places the barrel, a drill breaks it, and the drops go on the floor. The magic happens in the two accumulators. We have got one filter to the special barrel, set to allow an NBT enabled. This is the one that is pulled out and deployed. The other one is exactly the same, but we are denying the special barrel and picking up everything else. That is sent to a sophisticated chest, and eventually we'll get better stack upgrades to go inside. We're up to 1,000 barrels so far, and they are just being pulled into a drawer for bulkier storage. I did go ahead and alloy some copper and amethyst together for amethyst bronze upgrades, since we could end up with 2.5 million barrels if unlucky. In other news, I may have worked out the TNT system, but it's untested and probably won't work. Yeah, that attempt didn't quite land, so let's move on, especially since NBT data does break the factory gauges, and there is no option to ignore it. Version 3 is so much more simple, and should actually work as intended. The first step is to not use Create 6. Instead, we just use storage controllers for singularities and ender dust. They cannot drop any items right now, and that is because the one working factory gauge says that we have more than 20 chromatic singularities in stock, which was the next step. If we have less than 20, the funnels will start dropping again and will light the TNT. The quantum ones are then picked up by the accumulator and moved into a compactor, which combines them with the red dye from earlier. This gives us the non-stackable chromatic singularities that we're going to be working with next. Send them into the final set of crushing wheels, and that gives us a bunch of different color paint balls. We need to drain red balls into yellow, yellow into green, green into blue, and blue into magenta. We have a few options. We could have the red ones go over 4 drains to make the magenta, and then yellow sent to 3. That is just far too easy. This is the chromatic compound after all. We kinda need to put in some effort into a cool invention. Like we could have the red ones be sent directly to a single drain, and then into a storage ready to be sent to a drain designated for yellow. Maybe something like this. I honestly don't think it's gonna be that efficient, but we're trying quite hard to use Create 6. Honestly, with everything plugged in, it is so far so good. Each drain does generate chromatic waste, so we just send that into a nullifier. For chromatic compound, we need to mechanically craft 4 magenta balls together. We are just watching our chromatic compound and we're trying to keep it at 32 in stock. I'll be the first to admit that this is not the quickest or most efficient system, and it could be streamlined with better chain conveyor tracks, but honestly, it looks cool. I think at this point I am just stress testing the frog system to find out its limits. Let's progress. To turn this chromatic compound into refined radiance, we could auto-craft torches and let them slowly be consumed to fuel up our compound. We have sticks and we could easily burn logs into charcoal for torches, but it's very slow. There is an instant way to convert these, but I kinda don't like the effort I'll have to go through to get it. Throw in the compound into a beacon beam for free and instant conversion. So it looks like for the foreseeable future, I'm going to be hunting wither skeletons for their elusive skulls. Sad times indeed.
Now it's time to brush your teeth. Now it's time to brush your teeth. Now it's time to brush your teeth. It's time to brush your teeth. Now it's time to go to bed. Now go to bed.
Oh my goodness, that is the first skull. Done. I really don't like doing this. But that's the game, and maybe 2 and 3 won't take as long to get. It did, but now it's time to make a wither. And of course, we're gonna use an old mining tunnel under the base to make quick work of this fella. We'll arrow him to half health and saw him until the star drops. That's 1 nether star, and that is 1 beacon. Throw on a chromatic compound, and oh, of course they float. Yeah, we're gonna need to put a roof on this when we're doing it for real. We'll need to press it into a radiant sheet and then mechanically craft it into an induction coil. That's what we need for final assembly. We are close, my friends. Well, I got a little bit distracted and I made an oversized tunnel ball, mostly for resources, but partially because I wanted to try expanding out the torch method, and it is so incredibly useful. Anyway, let's plug in final assembly and we have movement. That's a good sign. Super simple pre-assembly helped with that. But there is a problem with paintballs. Who could have seen that coming? The vault is full of the wrong color, so it looks like this system doesn't work. Sometimes new ideas work, sometimes they need tweaking. Let me try and tweak this one a little. Well, I've swapped the vault out for drawers, but this system is 100% the bottleneck. 1 ball goes in for processing, and now nothing is happening, because the next ball is traveling to this froggy until it arrives. I timed it as a 10-second idle time. Not great, but we tried. Considering we'll be using a ton of the inductive mechanisms, it's gonna need another upgrade. For now though, we have 8 Invar machines. That is technically chapter 3 complete. We can unlock chapter 4 and chapter 4a, which is a bypass of chapter 4, but we'll work on that later. We can also grab a bonus 3a for ender machinery. Chapter 4 is going to turn our inductive mechanisms into calculation mechanisms and ME controllers through some very tricky automation with minecarts. Basalt, sand, wood and snowballs should be reasonable. The goal is to produce silicon, which is where we could pivot over to 4a and use chaotic alchemy, but that is quite the headache, so we're gonna go for regular chapter 4. Of course later we will need to do both for 100%, but that's later. Well, you add in 1 buffer drawer and suddenly your system worked perfectly. Nice. The hum of machines is growing louder by the day. It's comforting in a strange way, but sometimes I do miss the silence. Yeah, it's getting loud here. Now, if we hop over the road here, you'll see that we have a small patch of land reserved for chapter 4. Will it fit? Only time will tell. So behind me, I have brought up some lava to power some magmatic dynamos, since chapter 4 apparently is going to use a lot of power. And we can now move power around using flux ducts, which is very nice. I then set up a basalt generator, but I used the wrong ice and ended up with deep slate. We'll fix later. Blue ice. Whoopsies. In terms of chapter 3a, it is somewhat of an expensive mechanism. It uses silver ingots, and the only way to get them is melting down the silver coins that we made a few of earlier by selling sweet berries. It also requires the end dimension, so we're going to be doing that soon since we will also unlock the jetpack. Oh, and fluid ducts, that's actually quite useful. Oh, and fluid drawers. Yeah, I'm gonna need this in my life. Looks like we're gonna go to the end soon. But first, let me show you this alchemical laser nonsense for chapter 4. We need to deploy a punch and Invar machine with a lamp on it to make the laser. We then need to point that at a minecart with some very specific ingredients inside. How we're gonna filter that minecart? I have no idea just yet. What I do know for certain is that the stockkeeper needs a crafting table. I know I could hook it up to a mechanical crafter, but it's slower than I'd like for crafts like this. So if we put sand and water into a fluid encapsulator, we'll get a sand ball. That needs to be drained into fine sand and sand chunks. It looks like we need an equal amount of both for those, so it's handy that it's already balanced. And this is as far as we can go through chapter 4, before needing to work out the alchemical laser. I feel like it's probably going to be something to do with this minecart rail mod included, which needs the silica steel which you get from mixing coal, quartz and iron. Easy enough, I guess. I'll tinker around with this and I'll get back to you with some results. This is actually kinda difficult to work out, so I think heading out for the stronghold and working towards the end might just be the reset that my brain needs to work this out. As always though, I need to remember to pre-mute the dragon because it is so unbelievably loud. Well, that's the stronghold. It is now time to locate the portal and defeat the Keeper of the End. Keeper defeated, it is time to explore. Slump? Ah, no ship. Ah, no ship. Yay, ship. That's one elytra that we can upgrade to a jetpack later. And we are back from the adventure, and I did stay out longer than I should have, but it was kind of fun to have a break from the automation for a bit. We do now have a jetpack, and it is so nice being able to mostly hover. And we now have 2 induction smelters. One is turning Chorus, Ender Dust and Silver ingots into Enderium ingots very slowly. They are then combined with the inductive mechanisms to give the obtruse mechanisms for 3A. Currently, we can make 10 Enderium machines, which is still pretty nice. These will no doubt come in handy, especially for fluid storage with the ability to push and pull. Also, while looting the end, I did find a Rendingale, which consumes feathers in exchange for flying around pretty dang quickly. It's kind of fun. Okay, so it warms my hobbled heart. The struggle that I'm having working out the alchemical laser is shared by a lot of you. We are all having trouble trying to automate the filling and emptying of the minecart, and I am happy to announce that it is now up and running. Just about. Let me walk you through one of them since they are both the same system. The problem is, how do we tell it to only fill up 1 fluxo magnet and 4 stacks of basalt? The answer, as it turns out, is in the quest book. Use 2 different cart loaders. Then it is working out how to pull out the use magnet to get sent around to the infuser for charging. The answer? It's pretty pipes and high extraction modules. Next, we only want to move the fully charged magnets into the cart loader. That's a high extraction module filtered to the full magnet. And then we use a data filter module which reads that NBT data. Then when it comes to unloading the basalt shards, you'll want a filtered unloader, set to deny removing any leftover basalt in the minecart just in case of a misfire. And if you have any trouble with it not converting, you can use these controller rails with an analog lever set to 1 or 2, which slows the minecart down for just a little bit. That is one headache that I hope has been sorted now so we can move on. I suppose it is a good idea to use a threshold switch to turn it on and off though, since minecarts and chunk borders don't get along. Both the blizz cubes and the basalt shards need to go through pulverizers, and we are using the auxiliary cactus to delete the non-primary item like snowballs. We are sending the basalt shards over to a compactor, where 8 of them are compacted into an earth charge. The earth charge is then combined with the sand chunks that we made earlier from the balls of sand, and that gives us purified sand. Sand chunks are a little system over here, and for now we're just going to be storing the fine sand in a lovely new fluid drawer. This is the next thing to work on, turning coke into coke chunks. We already have coke being made from charcoal in this pyrolyzer, and it is so nice that creosote oil is used for nothing in this pack. So nice. So first we need to water it, then sawmill it, then water it again, and sawmill it again. I am hoping something like this will work instead of making a loop. So let's connect the coke, which is going to start watering the first batch of coke. We'll use the wet version as a filter to specify what we want to pull off the depot. We'll need to push that onto a saw, and wow, we are spinning the correct way. That's incredible. That got watered again, so we pull that off and then push and then to the final saw. That's coke chunks automated. We, my friends, are winning. I should probably explain this ender tank full of water. We now have access to water anywhere we could need it, since we're pumping a ton of it into a blue ender tank. So wherever we need it, we just pop down a blue and instant water is provided. It is very useful. Now, much in the same way as earth charges, we now have ice charges being made. Now we need to push fine sand chunks, and coke chunks into a basin for compacting. And that is silicon compound automated. We're close, my friends. We need silicon compound and ice charges in an induction smelter, and that is regular old silicon automated, ready for applied energistics. This is a massive technological step forward, and I am over the moon that it all seems to be working. We just need a deployer with an inscriber silicon press, and that is giving us the printed silicon. Technically, that's all we now need to move on to final assembly, but to make the flash drive we will need the processors, which honestly was quite painless to do. Let me show you. Processors need molten material, so for that we're keeping it simple with a magma crucible. That goes into a blast chiller with an associated inscriber press, so if we put in some printed logic circuits into this deployer, they'll get pressed onto a printed silicon, spouted on with some destabilized redstone, and pressed. That gives us the logic processors, and it's the same for all of the processors, which is lovely. I did have to reinvent the way that we made destabilized redstone, and it's quite a nice solution. We've got the usual mills doing their thing, but now we're using pretty pipes and a retrieval module to pull the skystone dust over. Under our basin we have got the water ender tank. Just right click the logo at the front to tell it to push out the liquid. We have then got a fluid drawer pulling out the sky solution and pushing it to the next basin, where it's turned into destabilized redstone. That is then pushed into an ender tank for us to use wherever we need it. We're now also using 2 chargers, thanks to the round robin upgrade with pretty pipes. Right, let's grab out some silver coins. It's time to do some shopping. First we need to convert these to gold coins, and now if we submit a flash drive and 7 gold coins, we'll be given a flash drive that can never break. That means we can now set it and forget it. And I should probably do the same for all of the other tools as well. Speaking of final assembly, let's grab out a bunch of calculation mechanisms, and we have now unlocked the auto crafting from Applied Energistics, plus digital storage, and I think the highest tier stack upgrade. The final thing I want to do now is fix andesite for chapter 1, and we're going to be using an ender drawer for instant item travel. The elevator just kept breaking. Let's unlock the final chapter. Oh, it looks quite small and simple, but I know better than to assume that. Contraption 42. We need to create liquefied logic by melting down the calculation mechanisms from the previous chapter. 30 millibuckets each? That's kind of awful. We'll then use that to do a whole lot of math. We'll need to alloy together the liquefied logic 0 to 9 to make liquefied computation matrix. Oh boy, am I glad to see that lava works. We need 10 millibuckets of each number, and we get 1 millibucket per melted number. And we're going to get those numbers from doing math like 7 divided by 7 to make number 1, or 6 minus 5. The choice really is ours. I remember it being quite painful last time, so I'm going to take my time and work out the most efficient sums to do this. Before that, we are going to need one final factory floor to build this on, so let me get that built. So, we can turn nickel plates into 8s, 3s, and the operators. And from these, we will need to make our other numbers. We have a new factory floor, the longest building ready for all of the mechanical crafters. Again, a simple magmatic dynamo system, made even simpler with ender tanks and fluid ducts. And then finally, I just set up a trade station for buying fluix crystals, mostly because I really don't want to craft them. But anyway, moving on, let's start with a drawer, with a magma crucible on top, and then an input drawer to the left. We'll hook this up to the frog network and it'll retrieve the calculation mechanisms for melting. Nom nom, they've arrived. Thinking about it, we probably need a fluid drawer for the output, and a little bit of power. Oh wow, that is very quick to burn through all of that work. It's like a zero-tick machine, except now it's eating progress. But that is unprocessed logic sorted. Next, we're gonna need 6 blast chillers to make all of that wet logic into the numbers and operators we already have. Using a red print to copy and paste settings, it's already working nice and quick. You love to see it, even if it is temporary speed. And now I'm gonna go away and work out how we're gonna mechanically craft all of these numbers together. I'm hoping to use Create 6 like what is behind me, but I'm not gonna hold my breath. Once again, I had high hopes for Create 6 here, but it just doesn't want to play nice with the system. I even tried setting up the actual auto crafter, but it doesn't seem to remember how the craft is supposed to look, and it ultimately fails. The recipe says 8 divided by 8, but it inserts 8, 8, divide. It does the same on the 1x3 crafter we had earlier, it just cannot remember the correct order. So instead, we are going to do the Rage Plays Games version with the stackable crafters, and using pretty pipes to move things around. It looks like this, and you'll find all references in the description as always. 8 sets of 3 crafters, all connected at the back with pretty pipes. One thing we couldn't do before is have a storage drawer connected to every drawer, so it does make for easy item tracking. So let's start with making 0. In crafter 1, we will put in a retrieval module and set it to retrieve 3s. Crafter 2 is a minus, and crafter 3 is a 3. They'll perform the craft and they'll make us some 0s. And while I set up the rest of these, I'll put the calculations that I'm using on screen now for you to use if you want. You see, we want to use as many 8s and 3s as possible to remove any bottlenecks. Like, if we use 2 plus 2 to make 4, we would first need to auto craft 2 2s. Or if we did 2 plus 2 plus 2 to make 6, we would first auto craft 3 2s. And if we made 2 by doing 1 plus 1, I think you get the picture. So before, I either had to copy someone else's homework or do the math myself, but now we have ChatGPT to help with that task. I think this is a reasonable thing to use the chatbot for. Well, the numbers are in and we have 64 of each. It's not enough, but I didn't want to overwhelm the frog system. Before we continue, I did go and set up a simple applied energistic system because I really missed having digital storage. Also because once again, Create 6 cannot save the day. We have 10 total numbers, but we can only assign 9 of them to a factory gauge. So this time we'll use a pattern provider from AE2. But first, we now need to take our newly crafted numbers and melt them down into liquids again, which, if you remember, we'll be using 10 millibuckets of each in the next steps to make 50 millibuckets of liquid computation matrix. Once we have one bucket, we can pour it out to make a real computation matrix. So let's pop some magma crucibles onto the numbers and start melting them all down. This is working so far, and the fluid drawers are now accessible to the system. Let's make a pattern. If we tell it that if it sends 0.2 buckets of each of the liquid logic, in return it will get a computation matrix. Okay, let me put together a quick tinker smelter and we'll be back with some more endgame progression. It is a very slow process, so I've made a small change. We're now just storing 1.6 buckets of logic and then I'm turning off the machine. That way it doesn't consume any more numbers. We have the last 2 numbers left to make, but we have more than 200 millibuckets, so we may as well give the crafter a test. It's a dead simple smeltery with a pattern provider facing a seared drain. Inside of that we have our lovely big pattern. Then we just have a drain to pour out the finished liquid, which solidifies and is stored in a drawer. Let's request one computation matrix. It's pouring. Yay! We have made 1 out of 8 matrix. While we wait, there is another section of quests to make a start on, and that's creating matter balls. So if we use a Fluix pail on an ME controller, that gives us the matter condenser, where we just need to dump in a bunch of items to become matter. Okay, so the verdict is in on how I feel about using the new Create storage, and currently, I'm not really a big fan. I'm hoping that an add-on comes along one day that makes it a little closer to Tom's storage. The rest of Create 6 though is awesome. Ooh, we can use water to create matter balls. This changes everything. That's the last lot of liquefied logic complete. Let's get the computation matrix requested. 7 more please. That's 8 in total. That's quest complete. Nice. We've got a cheeky little matter ball creator here. We'll push those into a basin, take some freshly made blaze cakes and give this fella his Red Bull. That's the matter plastic. We just need to set a filter and away it goes. So we may have a few new mechanical crafters prepared for endgame. And that's yet another one. Around the center we'll place in our computation matrices. ME controller here, some matter plastics, and some diamond gears. Now let's speed it up and oh, I didn't mean to do that. That is one successfully crafted navigation computer, with definitely no issues at all. That goes in the center of our rocket crafter. 3 compression dynamos, blocks of iron sheets here, and a little glass. We use this little crafter to make a lander deployer and pop that into the rocket crafter too. The craft was a win, and now we have a lovely little The Rocket. We can deploy a matter plastic onto a heavy stone brick, and that is the landing pad. My goodness, that is a large item model. We can now use some iron armor, gold sheets and matter plastics to make up a space suit, followed up by an oxygen loader. The final part of this chapter is going to be looking for oil in the world. There is an oil patch quite close to the base, though we do have some bituminous sand, and we can easily get more from the desert. We can pyrolyze it into heavy oil, which is part of the fuel mixture. Honestly, I think it might be a fresh take on this challenge to go mining for the sand. Let's head to the desert and edit a hobble, make it cinematic. Yoink! After a lot of sand harvesting, we are up and running. But now I need to turn this one off for a bit so we can back up on some heavy oil. And I added a mod called Faunified because I wanted cute little hedgehogs. No other reason, they're just cute. So if we power up this blaze burner, we'll combine the refined fuel and heavy oil into fuel. 20 millibuckets heavy, 30 millibuckets refined, for 2 millibuckets fuel. I might need to go back to the desert again since I don't think 3000 is enough. We'll see. Maybe I could go and watch a movie while this runs in the background. I watched a movie or two and I had to go farm some more sand. But that has completed the final quest chapter and the end game is to go to the moon. I've made a start on tidying up the town, opting for my usual textured dirt pathway. We're also using packages as decoration because they're cute and emphasize the systems that we're running most of the town on. Anyway, pumping water and power into an oxygen loader makes oxygen, which you can then load into your chest plate. I've also made some gas tanks because you kinda don't want to run out of oxygen on the moon. And we can now load our fuel into the rocket. Do a quick check on the test of patience, 212,000 barrels. Hurry up please, and let us take off from this planet and head up to the moon for a real quick visit. It has taken a long time for us to reach this point, but as soon as we land, that would technically be mod pack complete. The video could end here. But that is not what we're about. The other quests are achievable, so we continue to 100%. We're on the moon now. I don't know why. We are here, but the quest didn't complete yet. Weird. I guess we'll head down this hole and start digging out the core for resources. It would be a shame to waste this opportunity. We are home, and it is time to look into a little bit of chapter 4a. The idea is we need to make reagents out of all of these ingredients, plus a few that I don't have yet. We are missing aquatic, sapphire and ruby. The aquatic one needs prismarine shards, and I don't really want to go and fight guardians. Wait, never mind, we can just haunt lapis, that is fine. Sapphire needs sapphire dust, and the only way we can get that is using a crushing fella from occultism, a mod which we have avoided up until this point because of how overpowered it can be. And that's the same for the ruby reagent too. That means we need to go through the whole summoning section of the mod, which thankfully isn't too deep. First, I'll wait for these reagents to finish making, then we'll move on. So, occultism. Underground, you'll find some oak trees from that mod. Eat demon fruit until your eyes go funny, then harvest the logs. Then take some time to reflect upon how much mining you have done in this mod pack. It's quite surreal being back down here again. That's all the reagents made, minus the occultism ones, which we're gonna make now. We just sacrifice a zinc, copper, iron, and gold dust, and offer up a bound book of the foliate variety. Friend, please will you crush down some sapphire for us? We'd be ever so grateful. Unfortunately, our new friend is quite slow. We could get higher tier crushers, but I kinda don't want to, as that involves digging deeper into the mod. That's enough to make one of each so the quest completes, and then we can just leave him run in the background. Now we need to work out the combination of igneous reagents that will make our igneous catalyst, and all the other ones too. Of course, that needs the alchemical laser from before, but this one is manual. It's possible to work out the ingredients in 6 moves, but I'm not that smart. Let me show you how I do it. We are going to work out the volatile catalyst, and we'll start by filling 4 slots with the blazing reagent, and slot 5 gets a glowstone accelerator. This will tell us if any of the reagents are in the correct slot. In our case, we'll find out if we need blazing. We get 1 blazing in return, so 1 was in the right spot. Save these for later. The mundane blend can go into the centrifugal separator, and if we get 3 ash, it means that only 1 blazing is needed. We'll do the same for obsidian. Yep, slime. Yep, nether. Nope. So we use this as our finding agent. Gunpowder? Nope. Aquatic? Nope, thank goodness. And now we need to figure out which reagent goes into which slot. We'll start with blazing in the first slot, and since we know there's no nether, we'll fill the rest with that. Blazing is returned, so we know that blazing is in the first slot. Now, since we know that 1 is a duplicate, we will test the other slots. Then we do the same for the other reagents to find out where they go. Blazing, slime, obsidian, obsidian. Volatile catalyst. Put the recipe on the wall because I am going to forget. 3 down, 3 to go. Wish me luck. Well, it took some doing, but I have worked out every catalyst for this world seed, and I have made 16 of each. That's because we now need to work out which combination will make the chaos reagent, and all of that is randomized based on world seed. Starting with metallurgic, we can separate the mundane agents, see they have 2 metallurgic in our recipe. Also 1 igneous and 1 herbal. Now to work out their order the only way I know how. Metallurgic in 1 and 4, herbal in slot 2 and igneous in slot 3. That's the chaos catalyst. We can now use this to transmute 1 reagent to another linked reagent. Again, it is different depending on your seed. If we zap zinc reagent, we'll get cinnabar reagent. Sapphire turns into lapis. We now need to go through all of them to find out which one turns into silicon. Diamond turns into silicon. It is found. Yay! One of the worst that we could have possibly gotten. There is no way to automate creating diamonds, except for using the market mechanic where we can buy 1 diamond for 1 gold coin. So silicon with 4A would not be automatable. I told you shouldn't use my seed. And that, my friends, is the final remaining chapter complete. Chapter 1, complete. Chapter 2, complete. Chapter 3, complete. Chapter 4 is completed, but it is a little bit buggy. 4A is 100%, but it's not marking as so. Chapter 5 complete. That is the main story 100% completed. However, I can see the comments now. There are more quests that I could legally skip, but I'm not gonna. The bulletin board and the market. Submit these crops for 25 coins to complete the quest. Sell a globe. Kill 30 spiders. I feel like that is the perfect type of content to put onto the second channel. There's also the test of patience running in the background, so kinda need to wait for that. I'll see you soon. Of course. This world that we have just spent so many weeks in, it needs to be finished. It needs to be built up into something that we can look back upon and smile. Something that was home. Something that is ready for the next adventurer to start their journey in. Something that looks like this. I am so proud of what has been built here. This world, it became something special. I stepped far outside my comfort zone to build it, and I am glad that I did. I think I'm going to carry this place with me for a long time. This being the first ever time using chain conveyors and frog ports, it was a wild experience. And taking a leaf out of Mr. Beardstone's book to use Create Machines as building decoration. I love it. This is our Chapter 3 building, and this is a Chapter 4 building, using some blocks from the moon. Then Chapter 5 we've gone a little more futuristic in style to emphasize the factory that took us to space. I think now we should go and check in on Future Hobble to see if he managed to open that test of patience. My friends, it has been many days and 600,000 barrels, which honestly was pretty good odds, but we have got the reward of patience. Let's pop it down, and inside we have... yeah. That is totally worth the effort. Maybe it was never about the loot. Maybe it was about the barrels we made along the way. This village. It started as nothing, just a clearing between the hills. And yet, through invention, builds and patience, we turned it into something more. Every block, every mechanism, it all has a story now. A memory that has been etched into this world. It's far from perfect, but it's ours. And in the end, that's what makes it so special. But now, the machines are running on their own. Our work is done, and it's time to move on into a new mod pack, a new adventure, a new movie. Until then, thanks for watching.